Friends, family, and keepers of the faith, welcome to another Del Boy blog. And so glad you're all here and still watching. But as always, I'm going to date stamp this. It's year 5, blog number 3. And in legacy numbers, it's blog number 211. And it's dated the 8th of March, 2026. And as always, we're going to keep the format as it is. I haven't thought of any new ways of doing anything. And so there'll be a new section that will date stamp this. And we'll go over a little bit about what my week has been and then get on to the better stuff a little bit later on. But I will say it's been a bit of a reflection week for me. You tend to have those when things are on your mind. What the future might hold, that sort of thing. Probably go into that in more depth when we get to, the section where I talk about me and my week. But we'll get the news out the way after I just look out of my window, which I generally always do. And it's a dull day. Oh, we've had some absolutely good days this week of sunshine. In fact, there's blossom on the tree that's out at the back at the end of our garden. It's made me think about, how am I going to do the garden this year? It's going to be a challenge. The fence needs to be looked at. We've just found out that the post office that I live next door to, they finally sold it, and they're new people will be coming in April. That means that I might need to hurry up fixing this fence, which I haven't really been able to do, not generally this time, down to time. It's been the ground is sodden, it's wet as hell, and you really need to do it when it's a bit more temperate. So that's something that's on my mind, and I'm hoping that we'll have a good couple of days towards the weekend, hopefully, for me to dig a small hole down to the concrete base of the fence post, chisel up the concrete, put these stakes in, re-cement it, back up straight. It won't help with the fact that the fence is rotting, but, it will give it a little bit more time. And it might give me some time as well to put a collar around the base of the fence post. Things to consider. It's all down to, this time, the weather more than anything else. So, yeah, we've had some good days of weather. Unfortunately, this good weather has happened when I've returned back to work, so haven't seen much out of it other than looking out the window. So if you ever want to know what my garden looks like, you can have a look at a previous video. It's what I look out to every day. It gives me joy to see it when it's tidy. Makes me feel bad when I see it looking in the state that it is based on the winter, and there's a lot of moss in the grass that I really ought to be raking up now, and probably thinking about putting some grass seed down, sort of like in the next month to month and a half, really. Let's get the news out of the way, shall we? This boring, horrible bit. And it's been a terrible week. I was looking at the news articles and I was disgusted by it all. Terrible. But you make up your own minds. I have my own individual opinion, but I won't be voicing them here because, to be quite honest, a lot of it is political and causes rifts if you sort of like side one way or another. Maybe my age will give it away on what I'm thinking about these. But for now, the news. Donald Trump has publicly rebuked Prime Minister Keir Starmer's Prime Minister Keir Starmer by accusing him of seeking to join wars after we have already won. There you are. That's the first statement. Pretty damning. Next one. HMS Prince of Wales aircraft carrier has been given 5 days to prepare for departure to the Middle East. It's currently being restocked. So there you are. That's the reason for that one. Convicted Soham murderer Ian Huntley, who killed two school children in 2002, died on Friday after his life support machine was switched off following a prison attack. I can just about remember these two killings. 2002, I was in Manchester, so a lot was going on in my life. I wasn't listening to the news half as much as I do now. I rarely went out walking. I got in from work, started to do housework, looked after the cat, all of that sort of stuff. And if I was going to sit down, I'd sit down and watch a film. Totally different to my watching habits now. It's get TV time in when you can, sort of thing. So yeah, but I suppose if you ever want an opinion on that one, it's good riddance. But you know, should you really think about that of another person? I don't know the full story. So now the next one, Labour MP Joni Reid has been temporarily suspended from the Labour Party after her husband was arrested for part of a probe into a spying for China. Yeah, what can you say about that? There's been a lot about this spying for China. They've been about giving buildings to China so that they can build on our land. The companies that are coming over are technically advanced and known for bugging and tracking and stuff. And we've got an inner person of the Labour Party who are currently in power in England being probed for spying for China. I mean, my God, this is where I'm saying you can have your own opinion on this. It's all damning stuff, isn't it? It's all horrible. The next one, the Spring Statement, was announced this week by Rachel Reeves, but has been overshadowed by the geographical crisis. If you don't know what that means, have a look at the top about Donald Trump and the bombings that have been going on in the Middle East, what that's done to fuel prices, everything else. It's all just started, and all of the statements that are coming out from America saying why they've done it, etc., etc. It's a mess. I don't know what to think about the world anymore, to be quite honest. And the last one, there's one more after this next one. Wrexham, that's a championship that's a football team in the championship. They were in the FA Cup last night playing against Chelsea. Now, these is a Premiership team. So several teams above the quality and the money of a big team like Chelsea. And they were in the FA Cup. I think it was a quarter-final now. And they put up a really, really good fight. It was such an entertaining football game. And to be quite honest, I don't talk about sports too much, other than my reflections with my dad. But even I sat down and went, wow, this is quite exciting. And the score didn't reflect the game. It was 4-2 in the end. Wrexham went ahead twice in the game. Then Chelsea came back with 3 goals. And then it sort of went to extra time. sorry, it was 2 goals. It was 2-2 at the end of the 90 minutes. But they were just too strong. There was a goal in the first half of extra time, and then there was a goal disallowed using VR. So they after that goal was disallowed, 5 minutes later, Chelsea scored, sealing the fate at 4-2. It was an entertaining game. I just was looking for Wrexham to win, to be quite honest, and I shouldn't do that, but I do. Not my team at all, but I felt the pride of the supporters when I was watching it, and I was watching the darts with my mum. It's the same sort of thing. There was a very Welsh strong feeling in the Premiership League matches that went on this week. There were 2 Welsh players. They got through to nearly the semi-finals, but in the end, the final was a great game between one Welsh player and an English player, and the English player won. But he's on form. Luke Littler is the number 1 player, but it was a great game as well. There's been other sports news, mostly bad. England losing against Italy and all that sort of stuff. But we'll go past the sport, because the only one I'm interested in is the Formula 1. And I haven't seen the race yet. It is early on Sunday, but I couldn't stay up till 2:10 this morning to watch it for a couple of hours. I'd have been up at about 11 or 12 o'clock. That would have been no good for my mum. And the last, like I say, news article is today is National Day of Reflection. So it's the 5th day, actually, of the National Days of Reflection. And it's to remember those we lost during the COVID epidemic. And, of course, I lost my granddad. So it's quite a big news story, bit solemn. But there you go. And that's the news. So I suppose we ought to talk about my week. Get very dry. So thanks for letting me take a water. Yeah, it's been an interesting week because I've gone back to work after that small holiday that I had, if you call it a holiday, where you're not at work but you're still caring for your mum. But I got a lot of jobs done. Not as many as I'd like, but I think that would be the same if I wasn't a carer. So I'm not going to reflect on that too much. But work was surprising. I came back, tried to get caught up, and instantly I was thrown a project at me. And on Tuesday, I managed to get that project done, which was a tracker spreadsheet, basically. And then we went into a meeting because she wanted my opinion on something. And I said, you can't have an opinion on this unless you bring in the other analysts. It's unfair. And we had this meeting, and slowly but surely the emphasis of what the meeting was about shifted. And it then turned out to a divvying out of jobs to do, which needed to be done next week. And next week I'm on what they call the priority task for the SACM team. And so I was omitted from being able to help further with this project. It's the one thing that bugs me, is that it's ever since I've worked for the Ministry of Justice, I've started a project and never ran for it till the end. It's always been given to somebody else. And I told my manager this, and I said, I'm not having a go. It's just that I call this sod's law. And what I mean by that is there is always a moment in time that you can get something done. And that moment in time, when it goes, it means that the job is passed to somebody else to do. And that upsets anybody. And it upsets me. So she said she'd look into it. And I hope she does. because it's not fair that other people have been given the chance of doing projects and following them through to the end. And every project I'm given is taken away from me. Like you're just there to do the donkey work. So yeah, not happy about that too much. When it comes to my mother, that's a tricky one as well, because we had the physio round on Monday, which was good. She was happy with how we were going. And something happened last night that was unforeseen. I get my mum a cup of tea, and I always tell her, "Mum, gonna go and get a cup of tea. I'll be no more than 5 minutes." And I leave the room. Now, if you leave the room and your sister's not there, there is a danger. And it's a danger that we can't really foresee or do much about. But in this particular instance, what happened was my mum pushed the table away that she eats her dinner from and reads her paper. On doing that, she did it so hard, the paper fell on the floor. While I was making a cup of tea, she bent down to try and get the paper, and she dropped to her knees. So she fell out the chair, in other words. And that's concerning to me because, as my sister and I both pointed out, there's nothing that we could have done about it. You got to go to the toilet. You got to feed yourself. You've got to get cups of tea. But we don't understand what's going on in my mum's brain in regards to why she's pushing the table out of the way, why she's not taking anything in, why she likes certain programs. All of that's unknown. Every time we talk about it, her mind goes blank. So it was a bit of a scare. But that's about it, really, in regards to that. And then there's just me, really. And my week, like I say, has been average at best. Going back to work was in some ways good, and other things privately bad. I haven't been able to do anything, play a game much, watch a film much, all of that sort of stuff. I'm looking at it and I'm going to do something about it. So I just noticed something and I'm going to have to come back in a moment. I won't be a second. So I've changed the setting and hopefully it's a little bit better. I just wasn't very happy about something. And I was thinking about what I was saying before, and I would change my week to challenging. Not only, concern for my mother, but with work as well. But it was a little bit more about what's been going on in my week as well. I've been reflecting a little bit about not only my own mortality, but I've also been thinking about, machines and stuff. Have I got enough resources to fix something when it breaks? We've been talking about my fence for such a long time, but that's been down to a number of things. I've been building up for the last 5 years tools, mostly though, just little things. When I've been a bit more flush, I've bought things like a rubber mallet, some chisels, that sort of thing. Making sure that I've got drills and bits and parts of stuff. But what if the washing machine broke? What if the tumble dryer broke? The microwave broke 3 weeks ago, and I've been looking at the prices of those. And you'd think, they'd be cheap, but we've got 1,000-watt microwave, which what's happened is the inside has rusted. So it's beyond repair, really, because I can't do spot welding and then enamel painting the inside. You can buy ceramic ones now. They're much better. But to buy a similar microwave would, be just around about the £100 mark. You can buy cheap £50 things, but you got to remember that we don't do just stuff in the air fryer, and it's space as well. And the microwave has become something that we heat up certain parts of a dinner. Like if I made the Christmas dinner, I would do everything by hand, cooking the vegetables in pots with water, and the oven would have the meat in it, and the roast potatoes and so forth. And the air fryer has been a godsend. But there's things that you do in your everyday life, that we've come to accept, like putting in the microwave, defrosting a chicken breast, or heating up beans or something like that, baked beans, melting cheese, say. And the air fryer can do an awful lot, but I still need a microwave, and when I do a big dinner, you need to reheat the whole dinner before serving it up, because certain parts will have cooled down while you were serving up, say, the slices of meat, say, on a roast dinner. So you don't want to buy something so cheap it just gets you through, but you don't want to buy something so expensive that it's beyond the capabilities of what you really need. And like I say, I've looked, and the mid-range ones are about £90 or £100. But what about the tumble dryer? What about the washing machine? So the microwave broke, and in my holiday, the skybox broke. Now that was really weird, and it was upsetting. On the Wednesday, I got no satellite signal. I'd followed all the rules on what it said to test it, and I had to phone Sky, and they came the same day. That was really good. And he found that there was water inside the cable. He naturally thought what I did when that mentioned, and that is the cable goes from the front of the house all the way across our flat roof, down into this room, into the back of that box that's over there. And there must have been a cut or perishing of the cable, and the water has travelled along, and it blew up the ports where the satellite dish cable goes in. There's two, and that's why you'll see that there's a bright whiter cable at the top there and an older one at the bottom. Now, what that did was I got a box free, a brand new one, absolutely marvelous. But based on things that have happened for my mum, all the things that I'd recorded, gone. There's no facility for transferring certain stuff across, and catch-up TV doesn't go back 3 years. So I lost all of that stuff that I spent the time scheduling to record and trying to find a time to watch it, and never found that time, and it's totally lost. And there's no transfer, and you can't move the hard drive out, and you can't ask to keep the box because they take it away. And even if they did, the card that you get with your box is twinned with the box. So if you wanted to watch any recordings, you have to put the card in, and that means repairing it up, and they frown at that and put in safeguards that you don't do it. Yeah, so that was a sad day. The microwave is something that's on my mind, but I'm more concerned about what if my mum's telly broke, what if my telly broke, what if the tumble dryer went, what if the washing machine went. When I go to the shed, is the petrol mower going to work? All sorts. And with everything like it is, I worry a little bit that these jobs are piling up. So I was glad that what I did about my car worked out. Don't get me wrong. It's one of the most important things, even though I don't use my car as much anymore because I work from home, that these problems are mounting up. And I also thought, what if my mum cracked a tooth? How are we going to get her to the dentist? All sorts of things. And the good news is that I've voiced these things with my sister, and she's totally behind me and saying, yeah, we're going to have to start thinking. So this year, not only have we got to try and think of a new norm, we've got to start thinking about what we can do when a major problem occurs. And it's great that I'm having that collaborative effort with my sister, and she's recognizing the dangers a lot more. So when my mum fell out of her chair, it's a shock, but we did everything that we needed to do, which was check to see if there's any bruising, check to see if any damage is to the legs, and protect mum's legs as best as possible by, whatever means possible. If that means using the wheelchair more, so be it. After a couple of days, hopefully things will return back to normal. I definitely put some ibuprofen gel on her knees, and we exercised her legs this morning, and she was still able to raise her legs up and down, and there's no bruising. So I think it's just a matter of, it's going to ache. Like if you had a bruise, it's going to be like that. But for a mum with vascular dementia, it's sort of like heightened for her. She'll be mentioning she feels pain when it's not so severe. It's diminishing, but she might not recognize that. So a lot of things to consider. And I wanted to bring that into the monologue because it's definitely on my mind. So I'm just going to just have a quick look at my sister, make sure she's okay, because obviously we're observing my mum now a lot more. So I'll be back in a moment. So my mum's asleep, and my sister's just prepping what to get her for dinner. And I just had a little chatter with her. I was telling her that I was doing the monologue, and she said, the cost of living, we'll get through it. And that's all empowering for me. It's like, all the recognition is coming out, and there is obviously that some things you've got to do, some things she's got to do, and we've all got challenges. We'll get there. That's all I can say about that. But I want to talk about some good stuff, really. Last week, what it taught me is that I really got happy and fun doing stuff on YouTube again. And I even did a live stream playing some games. And I really enjoyed that. And yesterday, for the first time in ages, and you can see here, I've got a cable on for my battery charger for my headset for the VR unit. And it reminded me that we're in the middle of March, and you get free games, and I haven't downloaded them or added them to my account. So I put my headset on, and my God, there was a lot to redeem. And one of them was a Arizona type zombie game. And I thought, do you know what? I keep redeeming these games and I never load them, never install them. I'll install one, right? So I was looking after my mum, and it was downloading and doing the installation. And it also said, by the way, there's a version 2 interface. I downloaded that as well. So I got everything all sort of like caught up. God knows how long that'll take on my Xbox. I haven't turned that on in 2.5 years. My PlayStation, I do virtually every week, even though I rarely go on it. Although the controller has moved. I played Astrobot. What's it called? Yeah, it's just called Astrobot. It's right here. There you go. Look. Played that the other day. And I put this zombie game on. And it was nice to see that you could play it standing up, or you can play it sitting down as a comfort to it. And I really got into it. It was really quite good. I played it for about an hour and a half yesterday. And the headset didn't go down at all in power, and only the strap's battery went down. So I had another good 2 hours still. I could have played that game. So 3 or so hours. And I wondered, what is this? And I looked, and it's because this new interface has unlocked something. I'll talk about it later because I did hear about it this week. It's what reminded me that I need to start doing things. So I played a game. I didn't play anything on Steam, but I watched my friend Mark play games, and that got me interested because he was playing a new game on the Commodore 64 called Sherwood. And yeah, I need to do a few things in regards to a very big passion of mine that was part of this retro zone, which is gaming. I've done so much with films, and I'll tell you why. Films are a very big, important thing to me. One of the most important things to me. And they're very, very easy, really, for me to talk about and sort of like research, you know, because I've got my collector's database. So I could do those with the thumbnail as well in about an hour. But gaming, you don't want to look a knob, you know, trying to play it. Really, you need to sort of like do a video this is the first time me playing it, right? And it would be, but you need to set up the controller, and you need to set up the screen, and you need to make sure that the little camera and the screen doesn't judder or anything. And you have to do the thumbnail. And if I thought of a game that I want to play, I also just want a quick look and look at the history of it to remind myself who wrote it. And then get my thoughts together in how I play, you know, how important it was for when I was playing it. Well, that means it's at least a 2-hour job, you know, each game, which is why live streaming is so easy, because you can just go, oh, and if somebody suggests something, and then you can put it on and you go, oh, yeah, I haven't played this in ages. And somebody will be saying, yeah, I played this. And you see their memories and it jolts yours. And hopefully you can bring all of those elements in and talk about it while you're doing the live stream. So much more collaboration, if you see what I mean, because of the audience that's watching it with you while you're doing it. So, yeah. It's a toughie, but there's definitely going to be some more of that going on, which is why I've got such respect for my friends like Steve and Robert and Mainmeister and many others, right? They might think films is probably harder to do than it is playing a game, but it's not. It's just a different way. And that's what's fun about being a creator of stuff. I'm mostly this blog, but I'm also a curator of a sort of my own stuff, for which I want to portray out there, mostly for the family, really. You know, when I'm gone, I want people to remember what made me happy. And this situation with my mum's not going to be around forever. So you've got to look at your own future in a way. So, yeah, interesting stuff, isn't it? I don't think there's anything much more to add other than, yes, I've been playing some games at last. And long may that continue to happen. And you're definitely going to see some stuff on soundtracks. Got some ideas and thoughts on that. It's the one bit that's missing, that's so hard to do because YouTube has so many copyright things. But I've got some ideas. So that's going to be happening, because that's a big section of my life. So let's get out to the shout outs, shall we? So the shout outs are really good this week. There's a few more, quite a few comments, and I'll be reading out all the comments that I kept. it's very, very rare now when I remove a comment. I've always turned around and said if a comment is viable and something that won't incite, I'll always read it out, no matter how short it is. But I won't read out insightful stuff that is there to cause us a reaction to another friend, another channel, or whatever. They're just not going to happen. They're not going to happen because there's nothing to report, to be quite honest. All of those things out the window. So this week we've got the following people that have written a comment. Steve Still Plays Games, Ian Hill The Ramblings, Rocket Bunny, Wee Bob Art, Colin Jones, aka Ponder, Martroid, and Muckman Movies. And many people might start turning around and saying, where are these other people, Denny and so forth? They've got their own little problems that are going on in their lives at the moment. They're not gone. I see them in Discord. It's just that it's really difficult for them to find the time to watch something that's possibly nearly 2 hours long and then give a response to it, which is why sometimes you might listen to something that I'm reading out from a person that's left a comment and it'll be about their lives, but it will be about their lives based on something I said. So it's viable. Do you see what I mean? It's something that you want there. So thank you to everybody that watches. Thank you for all of your support. And thanks to all these people that have left a comment. It gives me something to do on a Sunday, reading it out. And it brings back memories and incites me to sort of like go beyond what they're talking about. So brilliant. So let's get on with the first one. It's from Rocket Bunny. Just going to make the writing a little bit bigger. There we go. That might make things a bit easier. He's put, hi Del, I had some unexpected free time today, so thought I'd catch up on your blog and send you some comments as I listened to it. I hope you and your mum have had a quiet week. Well, you now know. I think you're a bit hard on yourself with your holiday and doing jobs, etc. You managed to do some new videos, which were great. Get the car sorted, always important. It's also just good to have a break from worrying about work responsibilities for a few days. Yeah, I'm my own worst enemy. I will say that. It's one of those things that, thanks for pointing it out, because although I know it, it's a behavioural thing. Remember how I've talked in the past about behavioural things are the hardest thing to knock. Yeah. So it's like asking a right-handed person to write with their left hand. And it's difficult. So you lapse into things that have been part of your life. And one of those things is critiquing myself. And yeah, it is difficult. I know I'm a good person. And I work hard. But it's just, I think I can work harder. Probably because what COVID pointed out to me is I went beyond the norm every day for 18 months by many, many hours and did it for the cause. So, yeah, it was interesting. So you've actually mentioned something else here. Said it was interesting. Big word. Hearing your efforts to ensure your mum is well fed. Although my own mother doesn't have dementia, we've all seen a very big change in her personality and her mental health since her physical condition has deteriorated. She rarely starts a conversation. If you give her the choice in anything, she will just shrug and say she doesn't mind. It's the same with food. Give her options and she will screw up her face and say no to everything. However, if you just put a good meal in front of her or tell her she'll like, she'll be fine and get on with it. Now, that's something that's been mentioned many, many times in my blog before, Rocket. So that's exactly what happens. We don't get any conversations. If we give her the option, she'll say no. No's her favourite word. Is there anything wrong with you? No. How's your legs? Dreadful. What do you mean by dreadful? She can't think of the word to say. Food? Nah. And it's because she I'm sure of this, she doesn't want people to put themselves out for her. And she probably thinks she can get up and cook it herself, which she can't. So I put out a meal in front of her, and there are only rare occurrences where she says, no, I don't want that. But there has been that occur. And that's difficult because when you cook something, it takes you half an hour, say, and you put something in front of her and she says no, you're going, oh, come on, Mum, look, just half of it. It's important. You've got to have 3 meals. It doesn't matter that you had a big meal at lunchtime. You need to have something in your system. You've got to get through the night. And she'll go, don't want it. And that's when it's really difficult. And I have to, what's the word? Guilt trip, I suppose. Her to eat it. Like, oh, Mum, come on. I mean, I spent this time doing it. Went to the shops and bought the ingredients. I prepped it, brought it into you. The least you could do is eat half of it, a quarter of it, and she'll then go, right, okay. And when she's finished, she's had the lot. It was just those things. And so you're quite right. It's, you know, what I'm doing is exactly what you did, what I'll discuss there. You continue, I'm glad you got your car through its MOT in the end. I was very late getting mine done in February. It was due in December. Naughty me. Yeah, I mean, I did mine before the MOT date still, but that was to preserve the date. But I'm paid monthly, so I'd have needed to have done it anyway. If I'd have lapsed, it would have gone into April and I'd have been 2 weeks over. Apart from me replacing the rear number plate light bulb beforehand, I was stunned it got through again. 19 years old now. Yeah, mine's 10. So I can understand. I've had a 19-year-old car. I've had a 25-year-old car. I know exactly what that means. It's all things like suspension struts and drive shafts, or the cam belt, or that sort of stuff. And it's terrible. Hate it. The list of advisories grows each year, though, and he's put a load of little emojis. Can't really show you those. But that, yeah. I really dread the question part of the comment section, as mine are so boring or unoriginal. No, don't do. Rarely I find that they're unoriginal. There are ones that are similar, which, can really get on your nerves, or somebody will cotton on to something about food, and then the next 3 weeks everybody's asking a food question. But there'll always be something different. So you give a shout out to Steve for such a great child actor question, and your answer with Christian Bale in Empire of the Sun was brilliant. Chef's kiss. Superb. Thank you so much. Yeah, it came to mind because I remember Steven Spielberg did a number of firsts, like The Colour Purple. And Empire of the Sun came to mind because I remember last year I bought a steelbook of that, and I got round to watching it, and I loved the music to it, which is unusual. Well, not unusual. He uses John Williams a lot. John Williams is a very good composer and a favourite of mine, but not in that tier that I like, which is the more B tier, I suppose. Jerry Goldsmith, Georges Delarue. They're not talked about as much as John Williams. Whenever somebody goes John Williams, it's like, oh, he's the god, isn't he? No. He steals, like anybody else, motifs from other films and all of that sort of stuff. Somebody has already mentioned that some of the Superman march could be part of Holst's The Planet's Bringer of War, Mars. And it is, in a way. No, that was the Star Wars one. Sorry, that was Star Wars. The Imperial March is a sometimes a note for note of Mars, the Bringer of Wars, Holst's the Planets. So, yeah, you get it a little bit. So here we go with my question. On the 16th of March, the new Doctor Who Season 21 Blu-ray box set is released at last. I'm interested in your thoughts as we wait. Any favourite stories? ? Do you have any memories from when it was transmitted? Question mark. I have more memories watching this season than any other for some reason. Resurrection and Caves in particular. Yeah, that's two great stories. Do you have any hopes or expectations for either enhancements, new effects, or special features? Whatever there is, I can't wait to get stuck into it. Yeah, and normally I'd be talking about this with Ian probably in a stream. But let's see, season 21. It's strange. Many people look back at the Peter Davison era and say it was a missed opportunity and is weak, where I actually have a different response, because Peter Davison was around at the time where Tom Baker had been in it for 7 years, but I was a very young boy. When we get to Peter Davison, I'm in my teens, and when he left, mid-teens. So you can imagine his stories are probably a little bit like when we talk about James Bond. You'll always remember your first James Bond and you go by the actor, but you recognize the talent that was in the ones you haven't seen before. So Tom Baker was a big thing for me, as was John Pertwee, but from a kiddie perspective. And Peter Davison was more of a, oh wow, and let's start thinking about what I missed in the past, which is where I got interested in sort of Patrick Troughton, because they were rarely repeated. So we'd just gone past the 20th anniversary and done the 5 Doctors, and we were entering a period of time where Peter Davison was going to leave. And I was very saddened by this. He was a very whimsical doctor, a doctor with vulnerabilities, timid, but with parts of genius there. But he had far too many companions, I think, through his cycle. Probably too many master stories. But let's have a think for a moment. So the first story, Warriors of the Deep, it's a Silurian story, so it's going back to the old days. But it was a story that was beyond budget. So my expectation for that one is better effects, of course. The story was weak, but it's not really, really bad. You know what I mean? It's a weak story. It's probably one of the weakest stories. And then we get to Awakening, which was straight afterwards, and it was only 2 episodes long. So you're talking about a story that's only 45 minutes in length. And again, it's a period piece one, with a monster that you could never do with the BBC budget, but it wasn't too bad. You know, we're talking same sort of effects as Zardoz, you know, with those floating heads, you know, so not the best. But then we get to the stronger stories. I think the next one was Frontios. And Frontios, by the way, is a personal favourite of mine. I love Frontios. I like the music in it. I like the story. I like the dilemmas that are in it. The TARDIS at one point looks like it's totally blown up. And the only thing that was left behind was the coat hanger. It's all very funny, but that to me, I watch that story once every 2 years and love it. And it compounds something that is going on, which is people need to start to leave. So when we get to Resurrection of the Daleks, you're getting a much darker, grimmer story. And it's a personal favourite of mine because it's as grim as Genesis of the Daleks. In fact, it's probably the grimmest Dalek story since Genesis of the Daleks, which is held up to be one of the most important and best stories ever in Doctor Who. I find that it's a little bit long and probably overhyped a little bit, because there are better stories. I'd watch Tomb of the Cybermen over Genesis of the Daleks every day. That's just me. But I recognised many firsts with Resurrection of the Daleks, and it was very, very dark. And from this point on, we started to get recurring characters coming back in later stories. It was a shame to see Tegan leave. But there we go. We'd seen people leave before. So, you know, it's not like a shock. And she'd left actually in the season before. So she'd gone away, come back, then she was going away again. And this time she wasn't coming back. So it was almost like the boy that cried wolf type thing when she went. But it was still poignant and upsetting. Because the next story is a weaker story, Planet of Fire. But it introduces a new character who's quite important, Perry. But also we get rid of Turlo. And the backstory of Turlo was a bit convoluted, but it enabled Doctor Who to go to other countries. And you could tell that a lot of it was done on film, and probably at great expense. But again, we lose a character, Turlo. And we now have lost all of the companions that we'd seen go through Peter Davison's era. And we get to probably one of the most important stories in Peter Davison's run, which is Caves of Androzani. Don't know what it is about this story other than, oh my word, isn't it strong? You've got dilemma after dilemma. You've got conspiracies. And the dilemmas are life-threatening dilemmas, and you feel it. It's there. And I loved every bit of it. And in many ways, it reflected the mood that went on in Logopolis, where Tom Baker regenerated into Peter Davison. This time, the regeneration was going to go into Colin Baker. And that happened. And I was so gobsmacked. And I think it's probably because we always think regenerations happen at the end of the seasons, and the new Doctor then appears in the first episode of the next season. And that didn't happen in this case. It was the twin dilemma, and we saw the new Doctor at the season end. But this had happened during Patrick Troughton's and William Hartnell's era. William Hartnell regenerated into Patrick Troughton very early on in season 4. So we'd seen it before, but not from my perspective, because I wasn't around in those 60s episodes. So I thought, this is weird. And the twin dilemma just turned out to be one of the biggest disappointments. The Doctor was turning into this murderous monster. He tried to kill his companion. He was scatterbrained. He was talking out of his arse. And he put the most garish costume on that you'd ever see in your life, while this other story was going on, which had no real gravitas to it to make the story a viable, great one for a rewatch. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on season 21. I hope that was all right. And you've put all the best to you and your mum, mate. Salute to you as always. P.S. Let's try and get a couple more hours on Planet Crafter done soon, or another game if you fancy it. If nothing else, we can have a natter and catch up on Discord. I'll wait to hear from you on Steam, and that'll be happening today, matey, hopefully. If my mother has no more hiccups, I'm not too tired, and I can get her in bed at a sensible time, I might be able to get an hour in before I go to bed. So that's definitely on my wish list. You might see this, you might not. So I'll send a comment through Discord. You have to excuse me because I'm talking an awful lot. I've been talking an awful lot with my sister as well. So it's not just what the hell you have next to no one to talk to. I've actually been talking to my sister quite a bit. So this Highland Spring stuff is brilliant. I love it. It's marvellous. Salute, my friend, and thank you very much. I wish you had a channel. I'd watch it. Wow. But speaking of channels, we've got a new one. Steve, who used to be Steve's Gaming Part 2, and we had Steve's Gaming originally, and now we've got Steve Still Plays Games, and he does. We'll read out what he's got to say. Maybe he's got a question, who knows? He's put, "Hi Del, I hope you and your mum are okay, and I hope your week has been okay." You can have a look at the beginning. Brilliant. "Bit of a mixed week for me. Some of it okay, but then I fell down the stairs and bashed myself up, so that was bad." I didn't know this. Wow, I'd have said something, matey. I'm sorry, I've been so preoccupied with my mum. I hope you're okay. That worries me. Don't worry me. And then I visited my mum, and sadly she's getting worse, and it's so very hard to see. My stepdad is doing a great job of caring for her though, but he can't cook, so they are literally living on takeaways. Anyway, I was going to end with good news, saying, yes, Formula 1 is back, but I've just watched Quali, and geez, the new rules are not good. When you're on board and the engine fades away so much on a straight that the driver has to shift down gears before he even gets to the braking point of the corner, well, that's just dreadful. I wish they'd get rid of the battery and hybrid systems and go back to the V10s or V8 days and pure racing. I totally agree with that. I watched the qualifying yesterday, and there was a pre-show, and he summed it up perfectly. I think it was Ted from Sky, and he said, "I don't want Formula 1 to be like Mario Kart." And somebody went, "You are? How can it ever be like Mario Kart?" He said, "No, think about it for a moment. In a race game, an arcadey race game, you're bashing along as fast as you can, but you've got these boosts, and in certain games, those boosts are only activated by going around the course and using your brake system. I don't want a car to be several cars behind going up to the checkered flag, and the person's still got hybrid battery fuel injection type thing happen. The car shoots forward and wins because they salvage the energy from the braking system from the lap previous. Don't want that. And that turns out, therefore, to be like Mario Kart. And I went, do you know what? He's dead right. That's awful. And who is this new person that's written the rules? I don't know. Anyway, I have a question sticking to Formula 1. What was your favourite Formula 1 season ever? To me, it's a hard question, but I'd probably say the year 2000 when Schumacher won the title for Ferrari after 21 years of them failing to get it. All the best to you and your mum. Oh, wow. There's so many that I could choose, but that's because I've watched so many documentaries. Of recent times, the 2021 season, which saw Lewis fail to get his, accolade as a driver champion because of a tyre change that happened under what do they call it? The car that they use, safety car, was out, which meant that Verstappen had much more grip and so beat Hamilton, and that cost him the whole of the game. as far as I'm concerned, the season was lost before that match. But always the exciting matches are the ones that go all the way to the wire. And that one went to the wire. It's the same for 1976's James Hunt and Niki Lauda. We made a film based on that, and the Formula One was much more exciting. You can go on YouTube and see the races. It was to the wire. And my God, the crashes and so forth, you know, it was just astronomical. Then you've got Prost, Mansell, and PK battling for first place in 1986. So this is going back some years. Yeah, I love that. And the only recent one that I really like was the 2009 series where Jason Button won, and for the team as well, which was Braun. Yeah, Braun. Don't hear too much about them anymore. They disbanded. But what a great match that was. So, yeah, lots for you to take in there. And thanks very much for that question. I will definitely thumbs that up, and we'll move on. And I'll carry on in a second. Yeah, and that was a great question from Steve, and makes me think about Formula One. Last year's Formula One to me was pretty much a forgotten season because of what was going on with my mum. So I'm looking forward to watching the race after I do this blog. Hopefully it'll give me a bit time to watch it just before my sister goes. But I will be popping in very often now that she's had that little hiccup. And I have to say it was a minor one. Even my sister and I, we're just now heightened to how long you can leave your mother for. But it literally was, I went to get my mum a cup of tea. What can you do? So that was absolutely fantastic, Steve. Thanks very much for that. And I'll be talking about you again a little bit later on, and salute. And now we get to Ian Hill, The Ramblings. Told you these aren't in any order. And let's see what he's got to say. And he's a great supporter of me, and I love doing my live with him on a Wednesday. I don't know where I'd be if I didn't have that little gap in my life to just sort of like talk about a hobby that's very important and dear to me. And he embraces it fully. And we have a great time just having a chat like down at the pub. So he's put, "Hi, Del Boy, hope you and your mum are okay. I always hope that your week had no drama and you and your mum shared great moments together." And I think we're getting there. Even though it was a challenge this week, we're getting there. "Last night, I didn't sleep well. My left foot was giving me a lot of pain. I tried to ease the tightness of the bandages and not put my weight on it. Nothing seemed to work. Felt so tired, but forced myself to do my classic Doctor Who review for next week. In many ways, having my YouTube channel is good for me. It forces me to be creative when it would be easy not to bother. I think it's a very positive force in my life. It gives me so much pleasure to create videos that a few people enjoy. It was good to have our weekly live stream back to normal, a real highlight for me. We may not have the high numbers of some live streams, but we have the best regular friends and followers." My God, you couldn't say that any better than my thoughts at the time, because it's not about numbers. It's about the quality, and it's about the people that you interact with. Although it's nice to think that many people come in, it's also nice that those people that are there every week that we interact with are always there. And it's absolutely fantastic. And that bond is a bond that will be there for many more to come, I'm sure. So it's brilliant. "I watched a lot of films again," he continues. "There were two highlights. The first was Brighton Rock from 1948. Now, that is a film starring Richard Attenborough. Well, anybody that knows Ian knows Richard Attenborough, what that actor means to him. Also had William Hartnell in it. Yeah, Doctor Who reference again. Filmed on location in Brighton. Oh, yeah. It was about a post-war gang of mobsters. Amazing acting performances. An all-time great classic British film. The second was Lawrence of Arabia. Wow. Now, anybody that knows me knows how much I love Lawrence of Arabia. It's probably second, third, or fourth film that I've got more than one copy of, and one that I enjoyed watching with my dad, alone, all of those times. So Lawrence of Arabia, 1962, a masterpiece of filmmaking directed by David Lean. It was also a great performance from Peter O'Toole, maybe the best of his career, and I would probably agree with that. He did some fantastic performances, and he's a talent that we miss. And what we have to understand is Peter O'Toole was definitely a haunted actor, an actor with many flaws and demons, drink being one of them, and it affected him. But my God, does he hide it for Lawrence of Arabia. Absolutely marvellous. Of course, I have to mention Zimmer's score. It elevates the film. That's a slight mistake. He knows it's Maurice Jarre. Don't criticise for this. Maurice Jarre did a fantastic score. And I found out later on that he's the dad of Jean-Michel Jarre, who I grew up with because of all the synth work during the 80s. We talked about him the other day, that it's something like the 40th anniversary of Rendezvous Houston, a most fantastic album that sticks out as an important album of Jarre's life. I loved it as much as Equinox and Zuluk and all of those. Fantastic. So it's Maurice Jarre, and Maurice Jarre did a lot of David Lean films, so that was brilliant as well. My question this week is, what old classic film would you love to see get a full restoration and a steelbook release? Oh, wow. Let me think. Well, I've mentioned it in your stream before, Ian, and Muckman is in total agreement with me because we had a chat with him once, all together, I think it was. And Dr. Zhivago, the other David Lean film, other than Bridge on the River Kwai, that has not had a 4K restoration. I think it's been restored. I think it's had a restoration. It's just not been released on physical media as a 4K. Danny and I have talked for years about Planet of the Apes, and we were told that 4K restoration is being done, but it's under Disney now, 20th Century Fox, you see. So we haven't seen a physical media release in that format before. There's a film I saw many years ago, and I haven't watched it in a long time, but it starred Ernest Borgnine, and it was a film that he got an Oscar for, and it was called Marty, and he was a butcher in it. Doesn't sound very exciting, but I was mesmerized through the film of Marty, probably because I saw elements of me reflected in his life, even though I was young at the time. That's one. And most people that know me know I love the film The Vikings. Tony Curtis, what an actor. And he crops up in a lot of films that I'd like to see a 4K release of. He did a film called Trapeze. I think it was with Burt Lancaster, set in a circus. And again, I was mesmerized at that in my earlier years. Keeping at the tone of going back in time, I was talking to Mark yesterday, and he did an impression of Wurzel Gummidge. And for some unknown reason, it took me back to my childhood, where I watched a film that I watched a lot of back in the day, which was Danny Kaye. And he did a film called Hans Christian Andersen, which is basically like a chitty chitty bang bang of the life and loves of Hans Christian Andersen. But Danny Kaye put such a lot of him into it, And that, I believe, has not got a 4K. But if there was a modern one, and all of these I'd love in Steelbook, by the way, and I don't believe they're on 4K. I'd like to see the modern horror masterpiece, The Fly, in 4K. Again, 20th Century Fox. So I might not get to ever see that. But yeah, I'd love to see the modern remake of The Fly in 4K. And I'd love a box set that incorporates Vincent Price's rendition of The Fly, the original, and its sequels, all in a box set as 4K. That would be immense, wouldn't it? Having all of those science fiction horror films in one box set. Son of the Fly, The Fly, Fly 2. Yeah. Interesting. I wouldn't mind that at all. And then there was a film that I've got on 3D in my collection. And that's Gravity. Such a short film. But it was an IMAX film, if I remember rightly. And I loved it. Definitely one I'd like to see as 4K. It shouldn't remain in just its high definition 3D form factor. So I hope that fills that in. And he's put all my best wishes to you and have a reet grand time. And the same to you, my friend. Salute. Love your channel. Thank you very much for all your support. I'm so looking forward to this Wednesday. We've got something special going on. And then we've got our own special when we reach our 100th episode together. Marvellous. My God, 100 episodes of me. You must be sick of me. That's all I can say. Notice I'm being hard on myself again. Salute, my friend. We move on to another fantastic friend of mine, Colin Jones, aka Ponder. It won't be this week. I think it's next week. He'll be on his 101st blog. And the in-between times of his blog, he's got these challenges that go on that make me go, wow, I really need to start playing games. I really do. And that's absolutely fantastic. We will get to that. And I will get there in doing that myself. So Colin has started off this week with saying, I'll start with sending my regards to your mum as always. Routine is better than incidents these days. Wow, that's an expensive week. Great news about the MOT though, yeah. And these are the things where, you know, you can't foresee everything. I let things slip. If I'd have done what I should have done, which is like change my tyres last year, I'd have only needed 2. Do you see what I mean? Which is easier to handle than 4 plus the battery and everything else. I definitely will be taking safeguards from what I've learned. One of the things the tyre professional said was, if you let your car stay in one position for that length of time, and the sun goes from, you know, east to west and so forth, then your tyres are going to perish. That's why the walls of your tyres are gone. So I need to make sure my tyres are covered. I need to move the car about more. All of that sort of stuff, it's going to happen. So I don't need to be told twice about it. You continue to be perfectly honest. What you spend your money on is your business anyway. Nobody else's. And quite right. I'm always probably my own worst enemy again here, in the fact that, you know, I show bits off, but they're actually part of what this blog is, which is to pass on to my family the things that I got this week and the things that were important. The things that you buy are. But certain weeks, I will go and I'll get things from charity stores. I don't need the most up-to-date 4K version. And most of the time, you probably won't find it on 4K, as mentioned earlier. So, yeah, there is all of that. We watch that Sky Football every week. So, yes, I know that one. Good that it's interesting for your mum too. I think what it is because all the scores go by, she's got something to read. She's immensely sort of like focused on stuff that's being put onto the screen. And if you've ever watched the Sky Sports build-up and the Sky Sports while the game is playing, you will note that they always bring up the table as it is, what the current score is, a ticker tape down the bottom, and you've got the discussions going on with all the matches, plus recaps from people across the whole of the country reporting on games that are important that week, like the bottom of the league, the top of the league, all of that sort of stuff. And it's an interesting watch, and I watch it every week, or listen to it in the background while I'm doing something else. So yeah, it's become a norm. You answered my question admirably, by the way. Perfect. Thank you so much. It's great to hear that I got a perfect. My God, I don't think I'm that, but thank you so much. The war between the land and the sea was good, but the ending was pretty lackluster, to be honest. Onwards and upwards, my friend. Yeah, thank you so much. My question was going to be last week and follows the same theme. What movies that were turned into TV series do you think should have been left well alone? Next week we'll have a different topic. Oh, that's nice, but I don't mind the same topic. But you're talking about films that were turned into TV series, but they should never have made the TV series. I totally get the question. Bit difficult. You have a think. Yeah, so John Hughes was a big force in the 80s and 90s, and he did films like Planes, Trains and Automobiles, Uncle Buck, Pretty in Pink, St. Elmo's Fire, all of these. And I remember Uncle Buck got resurrected twice as a TV series. You'd never be able to reenact the film with John Candy with another actor. So that should never have been made, in my opinion. Minority Report, again, an ambitious film done by Steven Spielberg with Tom Cruise. They did a TV series. It lasted one season. You'd think it would be good, but it ended up like Logan's Run. A great shame, something which had potential. And that goes with RoboCop. RoboCop had a TV series. It was bloody awful. Let's have no qualms about this. RoboCop was great because of its satire, and there just isn't any in it. So that's one. And that goes to some other honorable mentions like Weird Science and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I think Teen Wolf. Yeah, all of these shows, they had a film, they saw money in it, dollar signs appear, put it on TV, build up the characters, etc., etc. What a shit fest is all I can say. Would be Teen Wolf. Really was so poor. So I hope that answers your question, and salute, my friend. Absolutely marvelous. So I'm just gonna get some water. I won't be a moment. Yeah, I'm taking a few little pauses here, and I think it improves really the blog a little bit because it makes me recap and think about what I want to speak about next. So I just want to say a big thank you to everybody, and a big thank you to Colin there for his question. Because there's a lot of thought that has to go into that. I mean, there's a lot of TV shows that come from films that we've had, like On the Buses, Rising Damp was done, Man About the House was done. And to some extent they were successes, and others they were absolute fails. But that's the other way around. That's where a TV series is made into a film. I think that there's a lot of potential in films that they can only tell the story from a 2-hour perspective or less most of the time. And can you make those into a TV series? And you'd think with Uncle Buck you could, but sometimes it's the collaboration of the actors, you know, the mesmerizing charm, and those people that played those characters are not probably going to be available for doing something like a TV show. So it's a very, very good question. I really thank you for that one. Thank you very much, Colin. It's made me think an awful lot. And we move on now to Martroid. Salute to Colin. And he's put, most of us here, yourself included, Del, are big champions of physical media. So in that spirit, I was generally delighted when my Heart of Neon Blu-ray finally arrived today. It's been a long road for Paul Doherty's passion project. What, 8 years in the making? But the wait was absolutely worth it. Rejoice, fellow llama softies. Do you know what? I've almost forgotten. Just bear with me, and I'm going to keep the camera going on this. This turned up this week, and I remember opening it. And there we go. That's what he's talking about. I'm really, really looking forward to it. It's sealed. There we go. Jeff Minter, Heart of Neon. I think I'll show that off a little bit later on. There's a load of other stuff in here, and I still need to download the digital stuff. I've never got round to doing the digital stuff. I hope my password and it's still there and I can still download it. If not, I might need to send an email and just hope that he'll be able to grant me access to those files again. It's only because of caring for my mum, but it is my fault. So I expect it that might not happen, but we'll see. Salute, my friend Martroid. You're such an important person to me in my channel. Thank you very much. And we move to Muckman Movies, who's got a fantastic channel. I talk about him whenever he does stuff. Let's see what he's put. He's put, "Hi Delboy, hope you and your mum are well. I have a question for you." And that popped into my head for some reason or another. If YouTube didn't exist, what would be your creative outlet instead? That's weird, isn't it? I don't really count myself as a creator, you see, because the blog was what this was all about at first. And there are so many other things that I could do to do my blog without YouTube. I think I had to write these down, by the way. There's something called Happy Feed, which apparently is an app that allows you to cherish your memories and do a diary. And one as well called Clocksbox. Now, I've not looked into either of these things, but apparently they're good. But you want to know what would be my creative outlet. My creative outlet would probably be what I did before. What I did before was just watch the films, write down my thoughts in a diary, and collate them into my database. And then think about the days where I'd be able to put them on shelves and all of that rather than storing them in crates. And then there's my comic collection. But I also, when my dad died, got into doing some DIY. And I got into doing things like sharpening blades using a Dremel, which is a sort of like a grinding sort of tool. I'd go back to doing some of my soldering work. I used to love soldering. I'd love to be able to do looking at the sky, taking pictures of the planets. I've got my camera over there, which is a Canon DSLR, and it's got no ender lenses. Some fantastic lenses there. I'd probably think that I'd be doing things like that, to be quite honest. It wouldn't have the same feel. What I want to say, but I can see me doing that. Yeah, salute, my friend. You then come round and you say, I held off buying the Predator Badlands Steelbook, wasn't keen on the artwork. There's a tiny Predator with not detail on the front cover. I wanted the Predator taking up most of the front cover instead of one of the beasts he's attacking. Very poor design, in my opinion. I have to say, yeah, I can understand that. It is one of the boringest steelbooks. It tells you what it is on the tin, I suppose, and I do use that as on purpose, should I say. So, yeah. Not an awful lot else to say about that. Thanks very much, my friend, and salute to you. And we've got the last comment, but I need to get some water, so just bear with me while I get some. And we get to the last comment. I've got my water. Marvellous. And it's from Wee Bob Art, who had a community question last time. I hope that people did join in and look at that. He's got a fantastic channel, but we'll talk about that last time. But fantastic artist. Interested to what he's got to say. So let's have a little look. He's put, great to listen along as always, Del. I would love to get Predator's Badlands on 4K, but I do have Disney Plus. But I often wonder if it's the same experience with streaming. It's not. Tell you that now. Cars are always an issue, and I wish I didn't have to have a car, but it is a need rather than a want, as there is no way for me to get to work without one, and mine is for multiple reasons, shopping and all sorts of stuff. You're quite right. The bus service only gets to within over a mile away from where I work, so it just isn't feasible. I used to cycle to all the places of work, but hurt myself quite badly about 4 years ago and haven't been on my bicycle since. Anyway, enough doom and gloom. Yeah, and mine is like, even if I had the bus service, I'd still have to carry all the shopping. It's bloody heavy, some of the stuff, like water, for instance. Now, I buy these in packs of 8, and I buy 4, 5, 6 packs of 500 millilitres and 1 pack of 1.5 litre bottles to get me through a month. And even if you just carry 8 of these, you know, at a time, along with the milk and the butter and tins of soup and proper fillet steaks of salmon for my mum with vegetables and fruit, it weighs down the bag so much that I have to use the car at least once a week to get the heavy shopping. It's not literally once a week. It can be sometimes twice a week, because I go walking during the week and get the little items like bread, cheese, that sort of stuff. But the cleaning utensils, so heavy. My God. So yeah, car, it's a necessity for me. My question for next week is, I have Mega Games 2 for the Mega Drive, which has to be one of the best compilation cartridges ever made, with The Revenge of Shinobi, Streets of Rage, and Golden Axe. Brilliant games in there. The weakest one for me out of those 3 would be Shinobi. Don't know why. I think I just never really got on with Shinobi. Streets of Rage I played to death, as I did Golden Axe, and I even did a Golden Axe arcade game, sort of like gaming short. And Streets of Rage was one of the games that I bought with the Mega Drive, because I only had the Mega Drive for a year, but it was one I kept going back to, and I just went, that's quintessentially a Mega Drive game, as much as Sonic is. So there you go. So you continue. What comes to mind when you think about epic compilations of games from, say, the 90s? It is a difficult one to talk about these days, as it's not really a thing anymore, unless you include Steam bundles. All the best to you and your mum, and oh my God. Now, I moved away from the Amiga to PC. Very sort of like early, sort of like to mid 90s. So I think it was about 92, 93. And there was a lot of stuff that I played because we're going into versions of Windows. So I started off with DOS, Windows 3.1, Windows 95, XP, ME, etc., etc. And each time games were getting better because we then added things like CD drives, and therefore compilations became a thing again at from the early days where I had a Commodore 64, where I'd buy compilations on things like Soft Aid and They Sold a Million and all of those sort of things. So yes, I've bought a lot of Steam bundles through Fanatical or Humble Bundle and Steam's own sales. But ones that I've still got on my PC, and I've got to think here that it's just 90s games. It's a bit difficult because I'm not quite sure, but I'm pretty sure these were 90s. There was an anthology that I've got. I'll try and show it at some point. It was called the Interplay 10th Anniversary Anthology. And it had games like Star Trek's 25th Anniversary. What else did it have on it? Wasteland. Those were all 90s games. And that was a brilliant anthology. And another fantastic anthology that would have just started right at the end of the 90s going into the 2000s was Command & Conquer. I had a Command & Conquer anthology, which came in a box. A biggish box. It had, I think, 17 different Command & Conquer games in that anthology. And I've even bought collections digitally, like the Castlevania anthologies. And I've bought cartridges. When the SNES came out, I bought Mario's All-Stars. And even on the Switch, in fact, I've got a wrapped up anthology here. Just going over to my Switch and Switch 2 pile, which I haven't really ever showed off. But if I remember rightly, yeah, covered in dust. And I've never even opened it. But it's Super Mario 3D All-Stars, and it's not opened. Now, apparently that goes for quite some money now. But that's got Mario 64, Mario Sunshine, and Mario Galaxy on there. I mean, even this has got Super Mario 3D Worlds and Bowser's Fury on it. But other games that I've bought, look, I've bought The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Donkey Kong Bonanza for the Switch 2, The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. Zelda seems to feature quite heavily. Luigi's Mansion 3, not a compilation these. Super Mario Brothers Wonder, Super Mario Brothers Odyssey. That came with, believe it or not, a steelbook. And of course, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And its sequel is in a bigger box upstairs. And I bought, as an anthology, which is again later than the 90s, the StarCraft box set and the Diablo box set from Blizzard. Came in a chest. But actually, does that fit the 90s? I think Diablo does, and the first StarCraft does. But I've mentioned some Commodore 64 compilations there. When it came to the Amiga, did I buy many compilations? I don't think I did, you know. I have to think on that one. But I don't think I bought many compilations either for my handhelds. So it really has been the PC that's continued my compilation purchases that started when I had my VIC-20 and Commodore 64 days. Yeah. The VIC-20 less so. I don't think it had many compilations for the VIC-20. Then again, the VIC-20 was around from 1980 to 83, 84. Most of the stuff cartridge, but a lot of tapes. But compilations weren't really a thing back then, really. You could buy 2 games together that was wrapped up in a cardboard sleeve. They might have sold things like Pitfall and Pitfall 2 together, but they would have been the individual items just bundled together. But they weren't really compilations as a name. So that's an interesting one. I hope I've given some insights there. I think the PC has probably been the biggest thing I've bought compilations for in my life. So, yeah, interesting. Brought a load of stuff now around me. I'm going to have to tidy up, afterwards. But yeah, and that concludes the shout-outs. Absolutely great, fellas and gals as well. Thank you very much. Marvellous. I love doing all of that. And we then move on to Watched on YouTube. And anybody that knows me knows I've got a little bit of time when when I'm doing spreadsheet work, I can listen to podcasts. I go for a walk, I listen to Radio 5 Live, or learn a language, or listen to movie soundtracks. So the rest of the time, when I'm looking after my mum, I will tend to find that I look for the stuff that my friends have done, because they're usually about 10-minute videos, so they work out quite well. Some are longer. So the ones I watched on YouTube are ones that I mostly have got subscribed to and watch religiously each week, but I also pair it in with stuff that just comes up in the alerts tab, which I don't listen to very often. So sometimes it can be the most interesting part of what I've watched, because it also might be something that doesn't pop up in your alert. So the ones that I always watch are This Week in Retro, Tech Moan, Gadget Show, and Chronologically Gaming. Thanks to a lot of my friends on YouTube that pointed out things like Chronologically Gaming to me. Because they became the norm for me. I think it was Denny that introduced me to that. But This Week in Retro, they split their stuff up into main subjects and then some housekeeping and other little stories. They did this week, let's compare our Jet Set Willies, retro coding roundup, and something called quad damage. Very interesting subjects this week. I already knew about Jet Set Willies 31 different versions. There's millions of these around. They've done them for Manic Miner and that. I wasn't going to bring it in as a story because I'd seen it many times, but they did. Nothing wrong with that. But I was more interested in the retro roundup and quad, because these are things that I think are highly intelligent things. Retro coding roundup was about people that do coding on old tech within a certain memory restriction. And quad or whatever it is, quad damage, that particular subject was about coding a first-person shooter in 64K of RAM, which is an immense achievement, and it looked beautiful. So that was absolutely fantastic. I really enjoyed my time with This Week in Retro. It was a great week for me. Techmoan did something that was a bit somber. I had a bit of a hard time watching it because you think of your own mortality or your mum or whatever. And it was funeral tapes, music to be buried by. Yeah, so this guy, Techmoan, he's brilliant. Gets all this unusual equipment, and he picked up a briefcase sound system. So in this briefcase were 2 speakers and an 8-track tape player with a battery and a power outlet. And and it was supposed to be used in churches to bury people by. As you know now, funerals are full of people the traditional way, playing on an organ, or funeral type music that's played on from CD or whatever, but it's also the wishes of the person who's died to play music at the beginning of the funeral, and most of the time at the end, possibly one in the middle. Been to a few funerals now. It's very interesting. You get an insight, and it's very usually poignant for the person, that they're burying. So I've got my own music lined up. It's written down on what I'd like to have played at my funeral. It's something that I will have to relay at some point to my sister or whatever. You need to tell someone, otherwise who's going to see it? If it's stuck on my computer and nobody knows the password, that's you stuffed. So yeah. Gadget show. They did 2 shows this week. They did Apple's cheapest laptop and Mobile World Congress convention, wildest tech of 2026. Not so enamored with this week's gadget show. Apple's cheapest laptop. I looked at this. The cheapest one was 500 quid. It was like £499.95 or something. But I didn't know where it fit because it was like a Chromebook. And I'm just thinking, a 500 quid Chromebook? Where does it fit in Apple's strategy? But maybe I'm thinking all wrong on that. I'm of a certain age where I just go, you're filling up with all these different versions like Apple Phone 17 and 17 Special Edition and 17 big and small and all of that sort of stuff. It just bewilders me, the amount of models just for a phone. And then they've got their wearable tech and they've got their laptops and tablets. Tablets being one of their biggest sellers. I remember I did buy an Apple iPad, but I stopped buying those around about the 3rd model. I think I bought a Mini. I think the Mini was the last thing I bought. It'll work now, but you'll never be able to update it. And chronologically gaming, the problem with him is that he's just reduced how much content he brings out to being just 1 a week, sometimes 2. But that means that's why he's in December 1982 for so long. But his emphasis this week was on Beneath Apple Manor for the Apple II, which was quite interesting. It was a role-playing game of a sort. So I was quite enamored by it. Other stuff I watched was Paper Wings Music. This is a special channel that reviews gaming music, but done by musicians. And this week it was Super Castlevania 4 music reviewed by musicians. It's nice to get a musician's taste on things, especially on older tech. So that was great. Stan Fine, he does these sort of like parody documentary things on TV series like Doctor Who, Star Trek, all of that sort of stuff. He did the Tomorrow People this week. And I've got the big box set on DVD of the Tomorrow People. It ran from 1973 to 1979. And it was just really, really good. It was nice to relive those memories of as a child watching the Tomorrow People. That got rebooted. That's another show that got rebooted. Awful modernization of the Tomorrow People, I will say that. So other than that, I watched Gamer Tag VR. Notice the word VR, and you have to go back to what I was talking about with VR, but it's got this, the actual episode was called Meta's Secret Quest 3 Upgrade Tested. So yes, the secret is they've updated to operating system 2, but they're not trapped by Android 31 anymore. They've moved up to Android 34, and Android 34 removed the limitations. So with that removing of limitations, Meta can now go forward with far more emphasis on optimization. So that's really good, and I can convey to you that it really, really works. It's like night and day. So that's brilliant. And then there is the last one called Shorter Coit, or Co-It, IT. He did Nintendo's Nintendo Resurrect their worst product, right? So what's happened is Nintendo have got the Switch 2 and they brought out this product that was died during the early 90s. And that was the Virtual Game Boy. You can now slot your Switch 2 into the headset or Switch 1. And it turns it into an emulator for the Nintendo Virtual Boy. That's right. There's a paper version of it as well, or a cardboard version, should I say. And it looked all very good until I heard the price. So you have to pay £100 for this thing, or 40 quid for the cardboard one. But you also have to only be able to play the games through streaming, which means that you have to have you have to have the games in a specific sort of like format. So you can't put these into the Switch 2. So they've done it digitally. And it's another like 50 or 60 quid a year. So that's 160 quid for a failed console. So yeah, wasn't very happy about that. And moving on now, we'll get to film, TV and soundtracks on YouTube. And I'm just going to go and check on my mum once more, and then we'll rattle through this to the end, I'm pretty sure. Thanks very much. Won't be a moment. And I've just realised that if I keep pausing and not moving forward, I'm never going to watch the Formula One, so I've got to get real cracking, really, haven't I? So we moved to Film, TV and Soundtrack YouTube, which has got my friend Ian Hill, the Ramblings in it all over, because it's about films and TV and so forth. So he's got a great channel. As you know, I do a live with him. But just this week, just look what he's done. He's done top 5 Western films between the years 1943 and 1949. Doctor Who review of The Ark. X-Files review of Season 6, Episode 1. My God, he's moving forward with that. What I Have Watched, Episode 8, which is always a fun thing to watch. I mean, it's always nice to know what people are watching this week. And then Live with Me, Episode 97, with 98 being a special. We go back to just having a normal episode 99 and then a special again at episode 100. You lucky people, you. So absolutely fantastic stuff going on there. We move on to Mondo Celovic movies. Oh, and by the way, salute to Ian Hill, the Ramblings. Mondo Celovic movies, who did a Westworld 4K review and comparison. As you know, I've got Westworld. It's up there. It's in yellow. Up there. Where is it? It's somewhere there, I think. There. Which is a fantastic film. And he did a fantastic job of explaining what the differences are. I agree with him. The Blu-ray was very lackluster. So it's good that we've got a 4K of that. Moving on to Just Joshings, who used to be Through the Lens, does fantastic reviews, slightly different to the way that every other people do, which is probably why he's my go-to guy when I'm listening to reviews, other than Commode on film. He did Best Show on the TV, and it's a show called Industry. Now, he admits himself he hasn't watched a lot of TV shows, so he's not going to be the major influencer on trying to explain why this show is the best. In his opinion, it's the best based on what he's watched, and he hasn't watched an awful lot. But don't let that stop you watching it, because it was really worth it. I got some great fun out of that. Then there's Movie Collector, who's that ex-projectionist. He did a review of why don't movies sound how they used to. And he was going into how Laserdiscs used preamps and amps and had THX certification and that sort of stuff. Don't seem to have that type of thing anymore. So that was interesting. Brilliant show. Andrew Martin did Britain's most chaotic TV strike, the death of TVAM. So there was a strike that went on and it affected TVAM, and TVAM nearly went bust because of it. But they found a way of getting through it. So it was a very interesting time. I was around at the time, so to me it was a refresher, but it was brilliant. Then you got Adam Martin. Oh no, sorry, Commode on Film podcast. He did a deliberation video with his friend on is Pluribus the best show on YouTube, and I have to agree, yeah, it is. Really was. I mean, I can't really turn around and say I haven't watched everything, but I definitely will agree with that. It was brilliant. Then you've got Commode's Mayo's Take, which is more film reviews, and the film reviews they did are The Bride. Can't read my writing very well. Hoppers, Priority Blunders, the Immortal Then and Now, Mother's Pride, and Box Office Top 10. So quite an awful lot for you to watch there. I mean, it's nearly one a day. I wish I could keep up with that. And won't be a second again. And we've got the last page of what I watched on YouTube. And these are all my friends that I've known for years. They've been on my Discord. They're on Mainmeister's Discord. I chat with them weekly sometimes. Always commenting on their channels. And the first one is Down the Rabbit Hole. He lives in Canada. Absolutely brilliant. He did Konami's Run and Gun, a surprising basketball game. Top 5 bridge scenes, a response to Wee Bob. That's nice that he actually did a response. And Battlestar Galactica Qubits, which he got 25 years ago. So like him with me, I bring stuff up that I've had for years, you know, trading cards, soundtracks I've bought, all of that sort of stuff. Great to see all of that sort of stuff. You will be immensely entertained with Down the Rabbit Hole. I swear I've got a funny feeling he's that person that wanted to be an actor as a child. So that was great. But then salute, my friend, and I can't wait to see the stuff that you got coming out this week, which moves us on to Robert's Retro Gaming. Oh my God, has this person played some games through the years. Look at the list here. So we've got Dwarf Fortress Classic Episode 28, Minecraft Play Episode 183, Arcade Play Buck Rogers Pilot of Zoom, SNES Gameplay of Darius Force, C64 Gameplay Burger Time 1997, Pico 8 gameplay of Amadar, and Outlaws and Horwitz. So a lot of stuff there, more than one a day. That's a big average to do. And I mean, how he does it, I just don't know. I ought to have a little sit down with him for an hour and see if I could do any of this. So salute, my friend. Canadian royalty. I'm not worthy. And we have Steve Still Plays Games, and he's done, just since he's just started his channel, he's going mental with all his. Dark Souls episodes 4 and 5. It's a remaster of Dark Souls, which he's playing his way through slowly. ZX Spectrum's Mr. Do, Amiga Chubby Gristle platform game. NES various games, so he did about 10 in one video. And he did BBC game called Awaz, which I've seen quite a few times before. It's not like it's new, but it is in regards to that particular game. Then you've got Mainmeister, who did a high score kerfuffle. Oh no, he didn't. sorry, there's Mainmeister who did a Friday waffle. And he apologised he hadn't brought out much stuff, but he doesn't need to apologise. My God, he's been going 14 years. It must be hard to talk about things after 14 years that are worth talking about. So let's now move over to the overhead cam. And I'll show you some of this stuff. There we go. So we've got a Heart of Neon card with his signature on the back. Heart of Neon, A Life in Video Games, which is sort of like fluorescent. You probably can't pick that up, but it was brilliant. The soundtrack to Hearts of Neon, which I'm really eager to look forward to. And then Heart of Leon Blu-ray, which I showed you earlier. It really is quite nice. Really looking forward to that. And when it comes to films, haven't bought an awful lot, but some stuff has come through as pre-orders. One of those will be Somewhere in Time. Beautiful looking 4K disc. And then we've got the new Running Man, which I'm not really a big fan of the artwork, and that writing on that brick wall is hard to see. And that concludes the blog. So we've got to the end. Oh, nearly everything nearly fell over then. So we'll go back to the camera and I'll just do my closing comments. So it's been a reflection week, but it's also been full of new stuff. And that's what I like about a varied week. If only that could stay for the whole of the month. We'll try and aim for that, shall we? And with that, I'm going to say salute. I hope everything's been okay. I hope you have a great weekend. Thank you so much for watching. And we will get to some better stuff next week. And with that, salute. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.